Hello, my name is Dick Feeney. Welcome to my show. Today's show is called The ABCs of Old Cars. We're going to show a make of car for every letter in the alphabet. We'll use mostly American cars that are built between the 30s and 40s, but sometimes we have to sort of stretch the envelope a little bit to get some of those odd letters in. We'll also start out with a few car riddles. And during the program, you'll maybe get the answers to these. First one is, what make was the first foreign car in America? What car had a three-piece windshield? What car was built in Eau Claire? What car was the first one to have hideaway headlights? What company built cars and airliners? What company started out building ships? What company built refrigerators and radios? And then there was another one that built refrigerators and washing machines. What two companies were started by the same man? What company is also a game? What three American car companies went broke using the same car body? What car name is a color? What car had three headlights? What car's name is a chemical element? What three car companies have the same first four letters? What two companies were named for famous race drivers? And for the final one, what part interchanges on all American cars since about 1908? You can take this part from a 1908 car and put it in a 1999 or a 2000 and it will fit, and vice versa. And now we'll go on to our program. Thank you. This is the 1900 American De Dion. This is the first foreign car built in America under license. Now we have lots of them, Toyota and Nissan and whatnot, that are building cars in the United States, but this started way back in 1900 with this car. This is Auburn. We're doing this by the letter A. A is for Auburn. This is a 1931 boat-tail speedster. A 1936 boat-tail speedster. This car is very commonly replicated nowadays. You can buy one of these made out of fiberglass, and some of them are even put together yourself. Very, very beautiful car. We have another foreign car, is the American Austin. This is a very popular car in the early 30s. B is for Bantam. This is the American Bantam. This is an outtake of the old Austin company. They used a lot of the same forms and dyes and manufactured it as an American product. It was called the Bantam. It was made from 1935 until 1941. This was just a replacement of the American Austin. It was about the same size. They also even made a Woody station wagon in the American Bantam. B is for Buick. This is a 1908 model. A 1931 limousine. 1934. This is the beautiful radiator ornament on that 34 Buick. Radiator ornaments were a big thing in the past, and they, until a few people started getting impaled on them in the mid-50s, they decided that this was sort of a dangerous thing to have, and they made them to bend over and get out of the way. But if you got impaled on one of these, it's quite a problem for you. This is the 36 Buick four-door convertible. 1940 limousine, long wheelbase. A 41 convertible. And a 49 convertible. This is a 53 Skylark. This is a special bodied car with a Continental kit on the back. This is the Burdick. This is the car that was built in Eau Claire. It had a Continental engine, and they had a 60 horsepower and an 85 horsepower. It sold for about $7,000. This was about 1910. C is for Cadillac. This is a 1932 Cadillac, just out of the restoration shop. And there's the beautiful hood ornament on that one. This is a 41 Cadillac and a 53 that they made into a motorhome. This is a 54, I believe. Beautiful convertible. And a 56. This is a Checker. Most of these were made as the Checker Cab Company, and this is the one that's a game. Chevrolet. Chevrolet was named after Louis Chevrolet, who was a popular race driver at the time. Another car with the name after a famous race driver was the Rickenbacker. This is a 26 Chevrolet. My folks used to have one of these just like this, except they didn't have this beautiful Quota Trophy radiator cap, the little Spirit of St. Louis on it. This is a 35 Chevy, a 37, a 41. These were very big favorites of the hot rod crowd. It has the spinner bar front hubcaps and the fender skirts on the back, a sun visor, and fuzzy dice hanging in the window. And it's lowered in the back. This one you don't see too often. This is a 42 Chevrolet. This had the part of the chrome pieces were painted instead of being chromed as part of the war effort. It's a 47 Woody station wagon next to an ultralight. And getting right to the top of the line is the 55 Corvette, the original model of the Corvette. And here's even a stretched 57. Now for every one of these that you have like this, you have to have one like this. This is what's left over. There's actually a trailer that's towed behind an identical car. C is for Chrysler. This is a 31 Chrysler Coupe. A 36 Airstream. They also had the Airflow was the streamlined version, and they had the Airstream was the just the regular body, but it was fancied up with fender skirts and side mounts. This is a Town and Country convertible with the woody sides. It's from 1948. This was just the thing to take to the country club. C is for Cord. This is a 1931 model L29. This is a front-wheel drive car. You can see the hump in the front underneath the radiator is where the transmission sits. Was one of the first regularly produced front-wheel drive cars in the U.S. This is a 37 Cord. This is the first one with hideaway headlights. This was also a front-wheel drive. Very, very nice collector car. Beautiful chrome side pipes going down into the fenders, and had the dash was engine turned like the Spirit of St. Louis, polished in circles. C is for Crosley. This car came out in 1941, and it was a little I believe the first ones were air-cooled. Then the Crosley company also made refrigerators. They made the Crosley shelf-door refrigerator, was the first refrigerator with shelves in the door, and they also built the Crosley radio. This is a 1947 model. It was a little tiny station wagon. D is for DeSoto. This is one of the airflow versions of the DeSoto. Both Chrysler and DeSoto had airflow versions. They're sort of kin to old Beetle Volkswagens. The same Art Deco styling. Here's one that you can buy cheap, ready for restoration. This is about a 48 DeSoto. This is a DeVaux. This is a offshoot from a General Motors car. One of the people from General Motors thought he could go off on his own and make his own car, and he made a few of them for a few years, but they're very, very similar to the regular line of GM cars. And this is D is for Dodge. This is a 38. This is a 39, a little more of that Art Deco styling there. D is for Dort. This is I believe a 24 or 23 Dort. D is for Duesenberg. This is the classic of them all. These are all each one of them is worth probably $1 million. They're unless they're in very terrible shape. And I was traveling down through Elroy, Wisconsin, and I ran onto this beautiful boat tail version. As far as I knew, there was only one boat tail, and that was a long ago lost. But come to find out that a company in Elroy is replicating this. And this one, I walked over and talked to the lady, and she pushed the button and the window went zzz and rolled down, and I knew right away what I had, that it was not an original. But they do a very beautiful job of duplicating the original. E is for Edsel, 1957. And E is also for Essex. This was a division of the Hudson Corporation. F is for Ford, of course. This is the famous Model T Ford. This one here is a 1911. The Henry Ford said that you can have it in any color you want so long as it's black. This is about a 1924 Ford Raceabout. It's has wire wheels and still not too modern compared to the other cars of that era. And this is a 27 Ford. This is the Ford Airliner, the famous Ford tri-motor, made out of corrugated aluminum, like an old barn roof. But they're a very tough old plane, and they're still flying. One visited Eau Claire just year before last to take up passengers. This is the 29 Ford Model A. And this is a voice motometer. This was a little temperature gauge that went on the top of your radiator cap to tell you if your car was overheating. They didn't quite have the circulatory system, the water pumps and everything that we have now. A lot of them were just gravity cooling. So they had to watch their temperature pretty closely, and there wasn't a temperature gauge on the dash, so they had this one that screwed right on the radiator cap. Another pretty Model A. And this is a 32 Ford. 32 was the classic year for hot rods. everybody had to have a deuce coupe, and this is the way they built them up. They took the fenders off and the sides of the hood off, and you had to have chrome aluminum finned heads and dual carburetors and header pipes, Hollywood mufflers. And this is a classic hot rod. This is a 33 Ford Woody station wagon, and they really were made of wood. This is a 35 Ford with the rumble seat. Here's a 36 coupe. This one also has a rumble seat. The step for the rumble seat is built into the taillight, and so is the gas filler. This is the way most 36 Fords looked when I was growing up, though. They were sort of outdated farm cars and ran in the mud, and they put a box in the back to haul the pigs to town in. 37 Ford. This is getting into the, starting to get the swoopy designs now and molding the headlights into the fenders. My first car was a 37 Ford here with me many years ago in about 1951. It was my first 37 Ford. Drove from across the country 4 times in this while I was in service. This is a 1940 convertible. Another typical slightly modified version with the spinner bar hubcaps on the front wheel and the fender skirts on the back, and a nice Mexican top job. (1941) Ford Super Deluxe. (1942) Ford went to the service as a staff car. And a 1948 Woody station wagon. (1950). There they had the new styling came out with the equal trunk and hood. And in the 1950s, the root beer stand was in big, and this depicts the old tray on the window with the A&W root beer and a couple of hot dogs and a sundae. And the final one in the Ford section is the Thunderbird, about a 1955. All of the companies about this time were experimenting with sports cars. Another car with F is the Franklin. This was an air-cooled car. This is about a 1930. Another one with F is the Fraser. This was part of the Kaiser Fraser company. This one a nice convertible. This is G is for Gardner. This is another sort of an off-take in the mid-20s from General Motors. You can see it sort of looks like a lot of the other cars of that same era. It has the disc wheels. This was an off-take from a General Motors product. G is also for Graham. This is the 1939 Graham. Now this was the ultimate in Art Deco design. This is probably, I don't know, it's one of the ugliest cars I think I've ever seen. But it's so ugly, it's beautiful. You can see it's the same sort of design that the 39 Plymouth was, only it's taken to excess. The 1941 Graham used the same bodies as the old Cord. The Cord went broke in 1937, and they sold the bodies to Hupmobile, who had the 39 Hupmobile Skylark, and they again went broke, and they sold the bodies to Graham, who built this 1941 Hollywood Graham. And shortly thereafter they went broke too. It was a beautiful car body, and but it was just the price was such and the depression was such that there just wasn't enough call for it, and they couldn't keep up, and all three companies went broke using the same car body. H is for Hudson. This is about a 34 model. And this is about a 48 model, I believe. H is also for Hupmobile. This is the blue one in the back there, and you can see it has the molded-in headlights molded into the side of the hood and radiator, and kind of combined with the fenders, but the headlights just blend right back into the hood. It also has a three-piece windshield. It has a little bar on either side and a little window turned to the side, a flat glass in the front and two little angle glasses on each side. I is for Imperial. This started out as the Chrysler Imperial, and then they became a separate model just called the Imperial in the 1950s. Another car that started with I was the International. And of course International is still making trucks, but they did make automobiles to start with. J is for Jeep. This is an outtake of the World War II Jeep. These are called Jeepsters. J is also for Jordan. This was an elite car in the 1930s. It has the Dell wood lights on. They're rather strange looking lights with a vertical slot in the front instead of a regular glass. K is for Kaiser. This is a 1943 Kaiser. This is a Liberty ship. They were made in Portland, Oregon, and were used for tankers and cargo vessels to help in the World War II of shipping all the necessary equipment that they had to ship all over the world. They were thrown together quite rapidly, and they were all welded rather than riveted, and they seemed to have some stress built up into them. Some of them even broke apart on their own, but they helped to win the war. After the war, Kaiser went into building the Kaiser car. This one was called the Kaiser Vagabond. This is about a 48 model. It was a combination four-door sedan and station wagon. It had the seat that folded down in the back like a station wagon, and the double opening trunk cover on it. This is 51 Kaiser, or no, 49 Kaiser. Kaiser also built what they called the Henry J. It was for Henry J. Kaiser. And this was one of the original compact cars. Sears Roebuck also marketed this car under the name Allstate. And our final Kaiser was the Kaiser Darren. This was their version of the sports car. It's a very sleek looking machine, and it has a unique thing that the doors slide forward into the fenders rather than swinging out. If you're in a tight parking lot, you would have no problem because the doors slid forward into a slot in the back of the front fender. And you never had supermarket rubs on someone else's car from this one. K is also for Kissel. This is a car that was made in Wisconsin. L is for LaSalle. This was a somewhat luxury car that was between Buick and Cadillac in the General Motors lineup. They were made up until just before the war. L is also for Lincoln. This is a 1934 model K2. So 1941 Lincoln Continental. This is probably the most sought after Lincoln of all. This is a 48 Continental, and this is where the name Continental kit. Everybody else tagged their tire back on the back like this to make their car look luxurious like the Lincoln was. Here's another Lincoln Continental. This one, they priced it at about $100,000. This is the Lincoln V12. This was basically the old 85 or old 60 horse V8 with 4 more cylinders added to it. It was a little flathead V12 engine. But the internals were the same as the V8 60, except that it had 4 more cylinders. This is the American Mercedes from 1906. This is one of those early companies that came and manufactured a foreign-built car in the United States. And they're back making cars in the United States again. The Mercedes SUV is being manufactured in the United States today. Well, M is for Mercedes, and it's also the first 4 letters are MERC. Another car with the first 4 letters, MERC, was the Mercer. This is a 1911 model. The Mercer Raceabout has a big circular windshield in front of the driver. The passenger doesn't get any windshield. And this is a 47 model of the Mercury. This is the third company with MERC for their first 4 letters is Mercury. This is a 1949 Mercury. This was the kind of car that everybody liked to customize. And here's one that's customized. This is what James Dean had in Rebel Without a Cause, only his was still in the old black primer, which a lot of people never painted them. They liked them as a black primer. They had that sort of a sinister look to them. Mercury is also our chemical element. Here is a Mercury pickup truck. This is a very rare machine. And there you can see on the tailgate it actually has Mercury stamped right in it. A few of these were built in Canada. And this is a Meteor. Now this is a Canadian-built Ford, a 1951 Ford built in Canada. You can see the basic lines are the same as the regular 51 Ford, but the trim was different. Different grille and different dashboard in it, different taillights. It's called the Meteor. N is for Nash. This is the Lafayette Nash, 1936. This is a 37 Nash. This is a 41. This is a 1949 Nash, or 1950 Nash. They called it the bathtub. It had fender skirts both front and back. And it was very streamlined looking. And there was sort of this big turtle. They called it the Nash bathtub. The problem with the front wheels were in order to stay within the body, the wheels were set on quite a narrow track and they couldn't turn very far. You had a very big turning circle in this car. But they're a very, very nice road car. They had a rather unique adapter here that you could use. They called it the passing eye, this little mirror that's up above the window there. This was a mirror. You looked in the mirror and it gave you a double image back and you could see out beside the truck that you were behind so you could pass. You could get the view without sticking your head out the window. You could get that side view along the truck to see what was coming over the hill toward you, called the passing eye. And the Nash's attempt at a sports car was the Nash Healy. And this was in 1951, and the next year they modified it a little bit, and they were the bodies were built in Italy, I believe, and shipped back to this country. The frame was built in England by Donald Healy, who later became the part of the Austin Healy operation that many people have seen as sports cars that came out a few years later. You can see the similarity of the line here. Also the Nash Metropolitan. This was another sort of American foreign operation. This was basically an English Austin underneath. And you used the Nash style body on the top of it. O is for Oakland. This is another car that's just sort of one of those cars that was around for a few years and was a pretty good car, but it just didn't last. Of course, the most famous one for O is the Oldsmobile. Oldsmobile is the oldest car company, starting producing cars in 1897 and right up to the present. This one is a 1911 version. The Oldsmobile company was started by Ransom E. Olds. This is a 32 Oldsmobile. Has wood-spoked wheels, varnished. This is a 1941. This is a 1949 Oldsmobile Rocket 88. Was the first overhead valve V8 engine. It was quite a bit more powerful than anything else on the road for its day. And this is a 1955 Olds F88. This was the Oldsmobile's version of the Corvette. Basically had the same chassis underneath it as the early Corvette, except that it had the Oldsmobile engine in it. And this was just a trial car. They never actually produced this car in any number. P is for Packard. This is about 1929. Shows beautiful white sidewalls. There's a 1935 four-door convertible, or they called them a Phaeton. And this is the beautiful swan Packard hood ornament. There's a couple of 37 Packards. And 47 Woody station wagon. And a 1953 Packard Caribbean. Also 1954, this is a Packard Daytona. This was a car that was built. They built 3 of these. One of them belonged to Jerry Lewis, and it now belongs to Gene Grings of Eau Claire. There's 2 of them left in the world. P is for Pierce Arrow. This is the first car to have the headlights molded into the fenders. Not this particular year. This is about a 31. They did this about 1915. They had that style of headlight molded into the fender like that. Pierce Arrow also has a very beautiful radiator cap. P is for Plymouth. This is a 35 model with the circles on the side of the hood. '39 model, there's that Art Deco styling again with the square headlights and trying to get the combination between the horizontal grille and the vertical grille. '42, this one is a staff car. And a 48. P is also for Pontiac. This is a 32 Pontiac. Looks quite a bit like the Oldsmobile. And there's the Pontiac hood ornament for the Pontiac Chief. This is about a 47 Pontiac, I believe. Q is for Queen. This is going back to 1906, and we had to dig in the records to find this one. There aren't too many cars with Queen, although the records show there are about 4 or 5 different cars that actually started with Q at different times during the past. R is for Rio. This was a company that was started by Ransom E. Olds, and he sold out his Oldsmobile company and started the Rio company. And Rio is still in business making trucks. This 1934 sedan is probably the last year that they made automobiles. R is also for Rockney. This was an economy version of the Studebaker. R is also for Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce manufactured cars in the United States from about 1915 to 1928 or 9, and they were assembled in this country, and they all had the steering wheel on the left side as this one does. The regular Rolls-Royce, all the Rolls-Royce built in England have the steering wheel on the right side. But this was an American Rolls-Royce because the wheel was on the other side. Another car with R was the Ruxton. This also has those Dell wood lights that have the strange little slot in the front. S, of course, is for Studebaker. Studebaker started out manufacturing wagons and later got into the car business. This is about a 32 with the oval headlights. '37, a 1940, a 1951, and about this time was when they actually in 1947 when they came out with this body style. This was the first car to come out after the war with the new style, and there were many, many jokes about not telling which direction it was going because it had the long trunk in the back and about the same length hood in the front. Well, up until that time, all cars had been sort of one-ended, that the body was toward the rear, and although it had a slope, it was sort of heavy in the back like a station wagon. This they called the Starlight Coupe with the wraparound window in it. This is the '53 Studebaker. This is the Raymond Loewy design. This was about 6 inches lower than any other car made that year. There was only 56 inches tall. And it was a very, very nice, smooth riding, nice handling car. This particular one I owned. T is for Terraplane. This was a version of the Hudson that would operate mostly between the in the early 30s and up to about 1938 or so. This had a kind of a swoopy back end to it. And it had the first column shift in that it was an electric shift, and you can see the little lever sticking out there. It had a little H pattern in it, and you just could shift with your fingertips. And it was all done underneath by hydraulics and vacuum. T is also for Tucker. This was a 1948 Tucker torpedo. This was Preston Tucker's idea to change the world. It was a rear-engine car. It used an air-cooled helicopter engine. It had 3 headlights in the front, and had a lot of innovations of modernizing that the other companies didn't have. And they all became a little panicky, and they went on a big campaigned to discredit him any way they could, and eventually he was forced into bankruptcy. They built 51 cars, and they were pretty good cars because most of them are all still running. And if you saw the movie a few years ago of Tucker, they had just about all of them out there for the movie. They rounded them up from all over the world and restored them all so they looked like brand new. It's quite an interesting automobile. U is for Union. This is a 1912 Union. There were 4 different cars called the Union at different times in the past. But none survive today. V is for Willys. This is another one. This is about a 1928, has the wood-spoked wheels. Willys also made aircraft engines. Another one with V, a little bit more modern, is Volkswagen. Volkswagen was built in the United States for a few years. This is what they call the American Rabbit. And this car belongs to me. In fact, I still have it. It's got over 200,000 miles on it. W is for Willys. This one is a 1933 model. This is a 39 Willys. You can see they're getting into that Art Deco styling again. One of those rather weird looking machines. This is a 41 Willys. This is a car that belonged to me. I bought this originally because I liked the line of it. I looked at these cars and I thought that if you had this cut off right about here, it would make a very nice looking sports car. And so I picked up an old one. This one I bought first, and it was in too nice a condition. In fact, I ended up restoring it here as it looks. But I bought another one for $8. It was minus wheels and engines and everything, and I cut the body off. You can see we're partly done here. And we moved the seat back and sort of rearranged things, put a Ford V8 into it and a few other minor operations, and we finished it up, and it looked like this. And we called it the Alpha Centauri. Well, then Willys went on to make the Willies Jeep, and this is what they were popular for during the war, was the Willies Jeep. Made many, many hundreds of them, and also Ford made the same, basically the same car too. And after the war, they came out with the Jeepster, and that still is carried forward the plans of this, and the basic layout is still used in the Jeep today. Okay, X is for Xenia. This was what they called a cycle car in 1914. This was made in Xenia, Ohio. And there were probably 2 or 3 of these built. There weren't a lot of them. X is a tough one to get a model for that one. Y is for yellow, and this was for the yellow cab. This was a separately made taxi cab company. It was owned by John Hertz. He later sold it in 1935. I believe he sold it to General Motors, and they made the yellow cab up through 1938. But they not only had their own, built their own cabs, but they had their own manufacturer too. And Z is the final one. Z is for Zip. This was another little cycle car. This one was made in Davenport, Iowa. And you can see it has the wire wheels, and it was a little 2-passenger. There were quite a few of them they called cycle cars. Some of them were built tandem, and some of them were side by side, but they're very, very light, almost go-kart quality automobiles. They're popular in the teens and 20s. And that's the end of my program for right now. Well, did we answer all of our riddles? Let's see. What was the first foreign car? It was the De Dion. What car had the 3-piece windshield? That was the Hupmobile. What was the first car in Eau Claire? That was the Burdick. What was the first car to have hideaway headlights? Was the 37 Cord. What company built cars and airliners? That was Ford with the tri-motor. What company started out building ships? Was Kaiser. What company built refrigerators and radios? Was the Crosley. The other company that built refrigerators and washers was Nash. They built the Nash Kelvinator. What two companies started by the same man was the Oldsmobile and Rio were both started by Ransom E. Olds. What company is also a game was the Checker Cab. What three American cars are built with the same first four letters was Mercedes, Mercer, and Mercury. What car is the name of a color is the yellow taxi cab. What car had three headlights was the Tucker. What car is a chemical element was the Mercury. What three car companies went broke using the same body was Cord, Hupmobile, and Graham. The cars named for race drivers were Chevrolet, named for Louis Chevrolet, and the Rickenbacker for Eddie Rickenbacker. And what part interchanges in all cars since 1908? I bet we didn't tell you that one. Well, that's the tire valve. They've been standardized since 1908, and every car will interchange. Well, I'd like to thank you all, and we'll hope to see you again on our next show.